Captain Lee Hyun stood at the observation deck of the mining station, looking out at the red sky of Kepler 442c. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the rocky surface where his people had made their home for the past 15 years. It was not much of a home, but it was all they had left. The mining colony was small. Only 3,000 humans lived here now, working day and night to pull precious metals from the ground. They needed these metals to keep their old ships running and their life support systems working. Without them, they would all die in the cold emptiness of space. Lee turned away from the window when he heard footsteps behind him. Dr. Park Mina walked into the room, her face showing the worry that had become too common lately. She carried a datapad in her hands, and Lee could tell from her expression that the news was not good. "Captain, we have a problem," Mina said. She set the datapad down on the metal table between them. "The long-range sensors are picking up movement in the outer system. A lot of movement." Lee picked up the pad and looked at the readings. His heart sank as he saw the energy signatures displayed on the screen. They were alien ships, and they were big. Very big. How many? He asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. At least 20 vessels, maybe more. The signatures match Vorthak design patterns. Mina sat down heavily in one of the worn chairs. "They're still 3 days out, but they're coming straight for us. The Vorthak." Lee had hoped they would never see those crystalline monsters again. The last time humanity had faced them, half of Earth's colonies had burned. That was before the Exile, before humanity had been cast out into the dark spaces between the stars. "Have you told Kim about this?" Lee asked. Mina shook her head. "I came to you first. But we'll have to tell him soon. The people have a right to know." Kim Dae-ho was the colony administrator, the man who kept 3,000 people fed and housed on this harsh world. He was good at his job, but Lee knew this news would break him. They had all thought they were safe here, so far from the main shipping lanes and the busy worlds of the galaxy. "What about evacuation?" Lee asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Oh, Tae-sung ran the numbers this morning. We don't have enough fuel to get everyone off-world. Maybe we could save half the population if we packed them like cargo." Mina's voice was bitter. 15 years of rationing and we're still short. Lee closed his eyes and tried to think. 3,000 people depended on him to keep them safe. He had 3 old frigates, ships that had been outdated even before the Exile. Against 20 Vorthak warships, they would last maybe 10 minutes. The door chimed and Oh Tae-sung entered without waiting for permission. The chief engineer looked like he had been working for days without sleep, which was probably true. His clothes were stained with grease and coolant, and his hair stuck up at odd angles. "Captain, I've been monitoring the comm channels," Oh said. "The Vorthak aren't trying to hide their approach. They're broadcasting on open frequencies, telling any humans in the system to surrender." "What are they saying exactly?" he asked. Oh pulled out his own datapad and read from it. "By order of the Galactic Confederation, all human presence in this system constitutes a violation of the Exile decree. Surrender immediately or face complete extermination." The 3 of them sat in silence for a moment. Lee thought about the children in the colony, kids like young Choi Ji-hai who had never seen Earth, never known what it was like to be part of something bigger than a mining operation. "They deserved better than this. There's something else," Oh said quietly. "I've been picking up chatter from other systems. This isn't just about us. The Confederation has been hunting down human colonies all across the Outer Rim. We're not the first." "How many others?" Mina asked. "At least 6 colonies in the past 2 years. Maybe more." Oh's face was grim. "They're not enforcing the Exile anymore. They're finishing it." Lee stood up and walked back to the window. In the distance, he could see the lights of the colony's main settlement. People were going about their evening routines, parents putting children to bed, workers finishing their shifts. None of them knew that death was coming from the stars. "We have to fight," he said finally. "Captain, with respect, we can't win," Oh replied. "Our ships are held together with spare parts and prayer. The Vorthak have plasma cannons that could crack this planet in half. Then we make them pay for it," Lee said. "We make sure they remember that humans don't go quietly." Mina stood up and joined him at the window. "There might be another option. The old deep space beacon network is still active in some sectors. We could send out a distress call. Hope that some other human ship picks it up. And what? Hope they come running to die with us." Oh shook his head. "Anyone who answers that call would be walking into the same trap we're in." "Maybe," Lee said. "But maybe not." There are stories, rumors about ships that went further out than the rest of us. Ships that never came back from the deep dark. Ghost stories, O muttered. Maybe. But what if they're not? Lee turned to face his two officers. What if some of our people found something out there? Something that could help? The room fell quiet again. Outside, one of the mining crawlers rumbled past the window, its lights cutting through the gathering darkness. Lee watched it and thought about all the times humanity had been counted out. All the times they had been told they couldn't win, couldn't survive, couldn't overcome the odds. Send the message, he decided. Full spectrum broadcast on all human emergency frequencies. Tell them what's happening here. And if no one answers, Mina asked, then we fight anyway. We show these crystal monsters what humans are made of. O nodded slowly. I'll start preparing the ships. We might not have much, but we'll make sure they know they were in a fight. As his officers left to carry out their orders, Lee remained at the window. Tomorrow he would have to tell Kim and the other administrators what was coming. He would have to look 3,000 people in the eye and explain that their peaceful exile was about to end in fire and death. But tonight, for just a few more hours, he could let them sleep in peace. He could let the children dream of better days, let the workers rest after their hard shifts, let the old people remember Earth without fear. The stars looked cold and distant through the reinforced glass. Somewhere out there, the Vorthak fleet was coming closer with each passing hour, and somewhere else, maybe, other humans were still fighting, still hoping, still refusing to give up. Lee pressed his hand against the cool glass and made a silent promise to his people. Whatever happened in the next 3 days, humanity would not go quietly into the dark. They would burn bright and fierce, and the galaxy would remember why it had chosen fear over friendship when it came to the children of Earth. The twin suns finally disappeared below the horizon, and the long night began. Dr. Park Mina could not sleep. She sat in her small quarters surrounded by datapads and old books, trying to make sense of the galaxy's hatred for her species. The historical records told a story that still made her angry. Even after all these years, she pulled up the files from 50 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars and met the Galactic Confederation. The images showed sleek alien ships meeting Earth's primitive vessels near Jupiter. Back then, humans had been so excited to learn they were not alone in the universe. The Confederation had seemed friendly at first. They offered humanity membership as a junior species, promising to share technology and knowledge. All humanity had to do was follow the same rules as every other member species. It had seemed like a dream come true. But General Yoon Sang-wook had been suspicious from the start. Mina read his old reports, written in the careful language of a military officer who knew he was seeing something wrong but could not yet prove it. He had asked too many questions, dug too deep into Confederation history. What he found had changed everything. The Confederation was not the peaceful alliance it claimed to be. It was a system of control, designed to keep younger species weak and dependent. Every member race had been forced to give up their weapons, their independence, and their right to explore beyond assigned territories. Species that refused were labeled as aggressive or unstable. They were isolated, blockaded, and eventually conquered. The Confederation had perfected the art of destroying civilizations while claiming to bring them peace. Humanity had been different. When the Confederation demanded that Earth surrender its nuclear weapons and military fleets, General Yoon had refused. He had seen what happened to species that gave up their ability to defend themselves. The alien leaders had been shocked. For centuries, no species had ever said no to their demands. They offered humanity better trade deals, more advanced technology, anything to make them comply. But General Yoon and the Earth government stood firm. That was when the mask came off. Mina scrolled through the records of the first attacks. Vorthak crystal ships had appeared without warning in the Alpha Centauri system, destroying the human colony there in a matter of hours. The message was clear: submit or die. But humanity had chosen to fight. The war had lasted 3 years. Earth's forces were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the Confederation had forgotten how to deal with: the willingness to take risks, to adapt, to keep fighting even when victory seemed impossible. Human tactics had been chaotic, unpredictable, and effective. While alien fleets followed ancient battle plans, human commanders like Admiral Kim So-ra had improvised new strategies in the middle of combat. They used civilian ships as weapons, turned mining equipment into bombs, and fought with a ferocity that terrified their enemies. The Vorthak had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they found themselves losing ships to creatures they had dismissed as primitive. The crystalline beings began to fear that humanity might actually win. That was when the Confederation made their final offer: exile instead of extinction. Humanity could leave the galaxy's populated regions and settle in the outer rim, beyond the reach of civilized space. In exchange, Earth would be spared, and the war would end. General Yoon had wanted to keep fighting, but the politicians had been tired of war. Too many colonies had burned, too many ships had been lost. They accepted the exile, thinking it would give humanity time to grow stronger in peace. They had been wrong. Mina closed the historical files and opened the more recent intelligence reports. Communications Officer Bae Soo-jin had been monitoring Confederation channels for years, and what she had learned was terrifying. The exile had never been meant to be permanent. It was just a way to buy time while the Confederation prepared for complete extermination. They had spent 50 years building up their fleets, developing new weapons, and planning the final solution to the human problem. The attacks on outer rim colonies were not random enforcement actions. They were systematic extermination, designed to wipe out every trace of human civilization. When they were done, the galaxy would be pure again, free from the chaos that humanity represented. A soft knock on her door interrupted Mina's reading. She opened it to find young Choi Ji-hai standing in the hallway, looking scared and confused. "Dr. Park, my mother said you might be able to answer a question," the girl said. "Of course, Ji-hai. What is it?" The 12-year-old girl bit her lip nervously. "Everyone is saying that bad aliens are coming. They say it's because humans are dangerous. But we're not dangerous, are we? We just mine rocks and grow food." Mina felt her heart break a little. This child had never known war, never seen the galaxy beyond this small colony. How could she explain 50 years of hatred and fear? "Come in," Mina said gently. "Let me tell you a story." Ji-hai sat cross-legged on the floor while Mina settled into her chair. The doctor chose her words carefully, trying to explain complex politics in terms a child could understand. A long time ago, humans met other races among the stars. These aliens had rules about how everyone should behave. They said that to be safe, everyone had to be the same. Everyone had to follow the exact same laws, use the same technology, think the same thoughts. "That sounds boring," Ji-hai said. It was, but it was also safe for the aliens who made the rules. They never had to worry about anyone challenging them or doing something unexpected. Mina paused, trying to find the right words. "Humans are different, Ji-hai. We ask questions. We try new things. We don't like being told we can't explore or defend ourselves. The aliens thought this made us dangerous." "But we're not dangerous," Ji-hai repeated. "Not to people who treat us fairly," Mina agreed. But the aliens didn't want to treat anyone fairly. They wanted to control everyone. When humans refused to be controlled, the aliens decided we had to go away. "And now they want to hurt us?" Mina nodded sadly. "They're afraid that other species might learn from humans. They're afraid that if one race can say no to their rules, others might do the same." Ji-hai was quiet for a long moment, thinking this over. Finally, she looked up at Mina with serious eyes. "Will Captain Lee protect us?" "He'll try his best," Mina promised. "All the adults will try their best." After the girl left, Mina returned to her data pads. But now she was looking at different files, technical specifications for human ships and weapons. If the Vorthak wanted a fight, they would get one. The door chimed again, and this time it was Bae Soo-jin. The communications officer looked exhausted, but there was an excited gleam in her eyes. "Doctor, you need to hear this," Soo-jin said. "I've been monitoring deep space frequencies, looking for any sign of other human survivors. Did you find something?" Soo-jin nodded and activated her portable comm unit. Static filled the room, broken by fragments of voices speaking in different languages. Then, clear as day, came a transmission in Korean. "This is Captain Lim Hyon of the merchant vessel Star Dancer. We are currently hiding in the Vega Nebula. Confederation forces destroyed our base on Kepler 186f 3 days ago. We have 43 survivors aboard. If anyone receives this message, we are running low on supplies and need assistance." Mina felt a chill run down her spine. When was this sent? 2 days ago. But there's more. Soo-jin adjusted the frequency and another voice came through. "Mayday, Mayday. This is the colony ship New Soul. We are under attack by Vorthak forces in the Glisa system. They are not accepting surrender. Repeat, they are killing everyone, including civilians. If anyone can hear this, warn the other colonies. They are not enforcing exile anymore. They are... The transmission ended in static. Sujin turned off the comm unit. I've recorded 17 similar messages in the past week. The Confederation isn't just hunting us, Doctor. They're murdering every human they can find. Mina stared at the silent comm unit, thinking about Jihai's innocent question. The child was wrong about one thing. Humans could be very dangerous indeed, especially when their children were threatened. She thought about General Yoon's old reports, about the 3 years of war that had made the galaxy fear humanity. Maybe it was time to remind the Confederation why they had chosen exile over continued fighting. Maybe it was time to show them that some species were too dangerous to corner. Captain Lee Hyun stood in the colony's main command center, watching as his people prepared for the end of the world. 2 days had passed since they detected the Vorthak fleet, and the alien ships were close enough now to appear on short-range sensors. The command center was crowded with officers and technicians, all working frantically to prepare their meager defenses. Oh Tai-sung had his engineering teams working around the clock to get their 3 frigates ready for battle. Kim Dae-ho was organizing the evacuation of non-essential personnel to the deep mining tunnels. Everyone knew it was hopeless, but they worked anyway. It was what humans did. Captain, the enemy fleet has reached the outer marker, reported Navigation Officer Han Min-ho. They're slowing to attack speed. Lee nodded grimly. Through the command center's main screen, he could see the approaching Vorthak vessels. They looked like flying crystals, all sharp angles and glowing edges. Each one was 3 times larger than his biggest frigate. Open a channel, Lee ordered. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the alien fleet commander. The Vorthak was a being of living crystal, its face impossible to read. When it spoke, its voice sounded like breaking glass. Human colony, this is Fleet Commander Kale Vorth of the Confederation Enforcement Division. You are in violation of the exile decree. Surrender immediately and you will be allowed to transmit final messages to your families before execution. Lee stepped forward. This is Captain Lee Hyun, commanding officer of Kepler 442c colony. We are citizens of Earth and we reject your authority over us. The crystal being's eyes flared brighter. You have no authority to reject anything, human. Your species forfeited all rights when you chose violence over peace 50 years ago. We chose freedom over slavery, Lee replied, and we choose it again today. Then you choose death. The communication ended. Lee turned to his officers. All ships to battle stations. Broadcast our final message on all frequencies. Han Min-ho nodded and activated the colony's main transmitter. Lee had spent hours writing this message, knowing it might be the last thing anyone ever heard from Kepler 442c. To any humans who might be listening, Lee began, his voice carrying across space to anyone with the right equipment. This is Captain Lee Hyun of the Outer Rim Colony on Kepler 4422c. We are under attack by Confederation forces. They are not here to enforce exile. They are here to commit genocide. He paused, thinking of young Jihai and all the other children who deserve to grow up free. We will fight them with everything we have. We will show them that humans do not surrender, do not kneel, and do not go quietly into the night. If this is our end, then we will make it a bright one. Remember us. The transmission ended just as the Vorthak opened fire. Plasma beams lanced through space, turning the darkness bright with deadly energy. Lee's 3 frigates moved to intercept, their ancient weapons charging up for what everyone knew would be their final battle. But then something impossible happened. Dr. Park Mina was monitoring the deep space communication array when the readings appeared on her screen. At first she thought it was a malfunction. The energy signature was massive, far beyond anything in Confederation databases. Captain, I'm picking up a new contact, she announced over the comm system. Something big is approaching from the outer system. One of theirs? Lee asked, his voice tense. I don't think so. The signature is different. On the main screen, the Vorthak fleet was advancing in perfect formation, their plasma cannons warming up for the bombardment that would end human presence in this system. But then their formation wavered and confused chatter began flooding the communication channels. What are they saying? Lee demanded. Bae Sujin worked frantically at her translation console. They're confused, sir. Something appeared on their sensors. Something they weren't expecting. The answer came a moment later, as a ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly between the human colony and the Vorthak fleet. It was enormous, easily 2 kilometers from nose to tail. The hull was sleek black metal covered with glowing lines of blue energy. It looked like nothing Lee had ever seen, yet something about it seemed familiar. "Is that?" Oh, Taesung whispered. "It's human," Dr. Park confirmed, her voice filled with awe. "The energy signature, the hull composition. It's definitely human technology, but advanced beyond anything we've ever built." The massive ship hung in space like a predator studying its prey. For a moment, everything was silent. Even the Vorthak seemed stunned by its sudden appearance. Then it opened a communication channel. "Vorthak Fleet. This is Admiral Jang Ki-tai of the Human Deep Space Fleet, commanding the UES Endurance." The voice was calm, controlled, and utterly confident. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy chose to fear us rather than face us." Lee felt his heart skip a beat. The Human Deep Space Fleet was a legend, a rumor whispered among the rim colonies, ships that had gone beyond the galaxy's edge during the early days of Exile, never to be seen again. But here one was, and it was real. Fleet Commander Cale Vorth's response crackled across all frequencies. "Unknown vessel, you are interfering with a lawful enforcement action. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." "I gave you 30 seconds, Admiral Jang replied. "You have 15 left." The Vorthak commander's crystalline features contorted with rage. "You dare threaten a Confederation fleet with a single ship? We are 20 vessels strong. Your arrogance will be your death." 5 seconds, Admiral Jang said calmly. The Vorthak fleet opened fire with everything they had. 20 plasma cannons, each one capable of melting continents, focused their fury on the human Dreadnought. The energy release was so intense that it briefly created a miniature star in the empty space between worlds. When the light faded, the UES Endurance hung unchanged in space. It had not even raised shields. "Weapons free," Admiral Jang ordered. What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned to fear humanity again. The Endurance's main guns were unlike anything the Vorthak had ever seen. Instead of plasma or particle beams, they fired pure quantum disruption fields. Where the beams touched the crystalline ships, matter simply stopped existing. It was not destruction. It was erasure. 3 Vorthak vessels vanished in the first salvo, their atoms scattered to cosmic background radiation. The surviving ships tried to retreat, but the human Dreadnought was faster than anything that size had a right to be. One by one, the Confederation fleet died. Not in explosions or fire, but in simple absence. They were there one moment, gone the next, as if they had never existed at all. In less than 10 minutes, 20 Vorthak warships became empty space and drifting debris. The communication channel crackled back to life. "Kepler 442C colony, this is Admiral Jang. Are you all right?" Lee found his voice with difficulty. Yes, sir. We're fine. But how?" "It's a long story, Captain. One that begins 50 years ago when some of us decided that exile didn't mean surrender. It meant preparation." Through the command center's view screen, Lee could see the massive Dreadnought turning toward the colony. Its hull gleamed in the light of the twin suns. Beautiful and terrible. "Permission to approach, Captain Lee. I think it's time the galaxy learned that humanity's exile is over." Lee looked around the command center at his officers, all of them staring in wonder at the impossible ship that had just saved their lives. Then he looked at the communication console where Jihai's mother was holding her daughter tight, both of them crying with relief. "Permission granted, Admiral," Lee said. "Welcome home." The shuttle from the UES Endurance was small compared to the massive Dreadnought, but it still dwarfed anything in Captain Lee's fleet. As it approached the mining station's docking bay, Lee could see that it was built with the same sleek design as its mothership. All flowing lines and glowing energy conduits. Admiral Jang Ki-tai stepped out of the shuttle like a man walking into his own home. He was tall and lean, with gray hair and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of 50 years in exile. Behind him came 2 officers, Weapons Officer Ko Yun-jae, a stern woman with scars across her left cheek, and Chief Engineer Ryu Dong-min, whose uniform bore the insignia of ranks Lee had never seen before. "Captain Lee," Admiral Jang said, extending his hand. "It's good to meet another survivor." Lee shook the Admiral's hand, still hardly believing what he was seeing. "Sir, I have to ask, where have you been?" The Deep Space Fleet was declared lost decades ago. Admiral Zhang smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Lost? No, Captain. We went exactly where we intended to go, beyond the galactic rim into the void between galaxies. While you and the other rim colonies tried to hide from the Confederation, we went somewhere they could never follow. They walked through the station corridors toward the command center. Along the way, colonists pressed against the walls to stare at these newcomers, these legends made real. Children peeked out from behind their parents, wide-eyed with wonder. What did you find out there? Dr. Park asked as they entered the command center. Time, Admiral Zhang replied simply. Time to think, time to plan, time to build. The galaxy had cast us out for being too dangerous, too unpredictable. We decided to prove them right. Ko Yun-jae stepped forward and activated a holographic projector, the air above the conference table filled with images of ships, each one larger and more advanced than the last. The Endurance is not alone, she said. We have been building a fleet in the dark spaces between galaxies. Dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, all of them using technology the Confederation has never seen. Lee stared at the holographic ships. There were dozens of them, each one a match for the vessel that had just destroyed an entire Vorthak fleet. How is this possible? Oh, Taesung asked. Where did you get the resources? The materials? Chief Engineer Ryu laughed. Captain, you've been thinking too small. Out in the void, there are entire solar systems that never formed properly. Gas giants made of rare metals, asteroid fields rich with materials that don't exist anywhere in normal space. And no one to stop us from taking what we needed, Admiral Zhang added. We've had 50 years to strip mine dead systems and build the most advanced fleet in galactic history. Dr. Park was studying the technical specifications displayed in the hologram. These quantum disruptors, how do they work? They don't destroy matter, Ko Yun-jae explained. They unravel the fundamental forces that hold it together. Atoms simply forget how to be atoms. It's based on research from the old Earth laboratories, theories that were never tested because they were considered too dangerous. Too dangerous for whom? Admiral Zhang asked. Not for us. Not anymore. The holographic display changed, showing a map of the galaxy with red dots marking Confederation forces and blue dots showing human positions. There were far more blue dots than Lee had expected. Every outer rim colony that was attacked, Admiral Zhang said. We were watching. Every human ship that was destroyed, we recorded. The Confederation thinks they've been hunting isolated survivors. They have no idea what's really happening. Which is? Lee asked. Coordination. Every attack on a human settlement has been broadcast to the entire Deep Space Fleet. We've been tracking Confederation movements, learning their patterns, preparing for this moment. Han Minho was studying the tactical display. Sir, how many ships do you have? Enough, Admiral Zhang replied. The Endurance has sister ships, the Defiance, the Resolution, the Unbreakable, the Last Stand, and many others. Each one crewed by the children and grandchildren of Earth's exiles. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This was not a rescue mission. This was the beginning of something much larger. What happens now? Kim Dae-ho asked. Admiral Zhang's expression grew cold. Now we remind the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate humanity. The Confederation has spent 50 years telling themselves that they were justified in casting us out. They've convinced themselves that we were the monsters. Ko Yun-jae smiled, and it was not a pleasant sight. They were right about one thing. We are monsters now. 50 years in the dark will do that to you. The holographic display showed new images, Confederation worlds, their orbital defenses and military installations highlighted in red. The Vorthak Empire has 12 major worlds and 47 military stations, Admiral Zhang explained. The Nethys Collective controls 15 systems. The other Confederation members have hundreds of colonies scattered across the galaxy. You're talking about war, Dr. Park said quietly. No, Admiral Zhang corrected her. The war started 50 years ago when they chose to exile us rather than treat us as equals. We're talking about finishing it. Lee felt a chill run down his spine. Admiral, the Confederation has thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, and they're all accustomed to fighting species that follow their rules, Ryu interrupted. Species that use approved tactics, approved weapons, approved strategies. They've forgotten how to fight an enemy that doesn't care about their conventions. The hologram changed again, showing battle simulations. Human dreadnoughts moved through space in patterns that defied conventional tactics, using weapons that ignored traditional defenses. We spent 50 years learning from our mistakes. Admiral Zhang said. The last war we tried to fight them honorably. We followed the rules of civilized warfare. It nearly got us exterminated. This time will be different, Ko Yunjai added. This time we fight to win. A new voice spoke from the communication console. Admiral, this is the bridge. We're receiving priority transmissions from the fleet. The other dreadnoughts have reached their assigned positions. Admiral Zhang nodded. Thank you, Commander. Begin Phase 1. He turned back to Li and the other colonists. Captain, in the next few hours, every Confederation military installation within 100 light-years of human space will cease to exist. Not destroyed, simply gone. The civilian populations, Dr. Park asked, will be left alone, assuming they don't interfere. We're not interested in conquest or revenge against innocent people, but their military forces, their governments, their ability to threaten humanity, all of that ends today. Through the command center's view screen, they could see the Endurance turning away from the colony. Its massive bulk moved with surprising grace like a predator preparing to hunt. Where are you going? Li asked. To deliver a message, Admiral Zhang replied. The Confederation capital world of Nexus Prime needs to understand that the galaxy has new rules now. Human rules. As the shuttle prepared to depart, Admiral Zhang paused at the docking bay door. Captain Li, your people have done well to survive out here. But survival is over now. The exile is ended. What do you want us to do? Li asked. Admiral Zhang smiled, and for the first time there was real warmth in it. Whatever you choose, Captain. You're free now. All of humanity is free now. The shuttle detached from the station and flew back to the waiting Dreadnought. Within minutes, the massive ship was gone, vanishing into faster-than-light travel like a ghost returning to the dark. Li stood at the observation window, watching the empty space where the Endurance had been. Around him, his officers were silent, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had just witnessed. Sir, Han Minho said finally, what do we tell the people? Li thought about Ji-Hai, about all the children who had grown up knowing only exile and fear. He thought about the parents who had died defending hopeless colonies, and the ships that had been lost to Confederation hunters. We tell them the truth, he said. We tell them that humanity is going home. 3 weeks after the Endurance departed, Captain Li stood in the same observation deck where this had all begun. But now everything was different. The emergency broadcast had been replaced by regular communications from human colonies across the galaxy, reporting their liberation from Confederation forces. Dr. Park entered the observation room carrying her ever-present data pad, but her face showed excitement instead of worry. Captain, you need to see the latest reports from the core worlds. Li took the pad and read the intelligence summaries that Bei Su-jin had compiled from intercepted Confederation communications. What he saw made him smile for the first time in years. The Vorthak Empire's military had been completely destroyed in a single day. 12 dreadnoughts had appeared simultaneously at their major installations, and within hours, the crystalline race's ability to wage war had simply vanished. Not a single civilian had been harmed, but every military vessel, every weapon platform, every defensive installation had been reduced to cosmic dust. The Nethys Collective surrendered without firing a shot, Park continued. Their gas giant cities sent formal communications to Admiral Zhang, offering complete withdrawal from human space in exchange for non-aggression treaties. Li scrolled through more reports. Similar stories were coming in from across the galaxy. The speed and precision of humanity's return had shocked every Confederation member species. They had expected human survivors to be scattered, desperate refugees clinging to life in the outer darkness. Instead, they found a military force more advanced than anything they had ever imagined. What about Nexus Prime? Li asked. Park's smile widened. Admiral Zhang delivered his message personally. The Confederation Council formally dissolved itself yesterday. Each member species is now negotiating separate peace treaties with the human deep space fleet. A soft chime announced an incoming transmission. The main screen activated, showing Admiral Zhang's face. Behind him, Li could see the bridge of the Endurance, busy with officers coordinating what could only be described as the liberation of human space. Captain Li, I hope you're well, Admiral Zhang said. I wanted to give you a personal update on our progress. Admiral, the reports we're receiving are almost too good to believe. Believe them, Zhang replied. The galaxy spent 50 years preparing to fight the humans they remembered from the last war. They weren't ready for what we became in exile. A new voice joined the conversation from off-screen. Captain Lee, this is Fleet Captain Nam Yu-jung of the UES Defiance. My ship has just finished securing the former Confederation shipping lanes. Human merchant vessels are already resuming trade routes that have been closed for decades. Another voice added, Commodore Shin Woo-jin here, commanding the UES Resolution. We've established contact with Earth. They're very excited to learn that the exile is over. Lee felt his breath catch. Earth, after all this time? Earth never stopped hoping, Admiral Jang explained. They've been building ships, training crews, preparing for the day when humanity could return to the stars. They'll be sending colonization fleets to reclaim the worlds we lost. The door to the observation deck opened and Kim Dae-ho entered with young Ji-hee at his side. The girl had been asking questions constantly since the Endurance's visit, trying to understand what it meant that humans were no longer exiles. Admiral, Lee said, I have someone here who represents why we fought so hard to survive. This is Ji-hee, one of our young people. Admiral Jang's expression softened as he looked at the girl. Hello, Ji-hee. How old are you? 12, sir, she replied, suddenly shy in front of the legendary commander. Mr. Kim says I can go to school on Earth now if I want to. Is that true? It's true, Admiral Jang confirmed. Earth has universities, libraries, museums. Everything that was taken from your parents' generation. All of it is open to you now. Ji-hee's eyes went wide. Will I be able to learn about the stars? About other worlds? You can learn about anything you want, Admiral Jang said. The galaxy is open to humans again, but more than that, it's open to human ideas, human curiosity, human dreams. After the transmission ended, Lee found himself alone with Ji-hee on the observation deck. The girl was staring out at the stars with an expression of wonder that reminded him why they had all fought so hard to protect the next generation. Captain Lee, Ji-hee said, Dr. Park told me that the aliens were afraid of us because we ask too many questions and don't follow their rules. Is that really why we were sent away? Lee considered his answer carefully. Partly yes. The Confederation wanted everyone to be the same, to think the same way and never challenge their authority. Humans are curious. We explore, we experiment, we try new things even when others say we shouldn't. Are we still dangerous? She asked. To people who want to hurt us or control us, yes, we're very dangerous. But to people who treat us fairly, who want to be friends and share ideas, Lee smiled. We're the best neighbors anyone could ask for. Ji-hee nodded thoughtfully. I think I understand. We're only dangerous to dangerous people. That's exactly right. Over the following days, more news arrived from across the galaxy. Species that had been suppressed under Confederation rule were declaring independence. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries were reopening. Scientific expeditions were being launched to explore regions of space that had been forbidden under the old order. The humans were not conquering the galaxy. They were liberating it. Taesung approached Lee in the engineering bay where the captain was inspecting repairs to their old frigates. Sir, I've been thinking. We don't really need these ships anymore, do we? Lee looked at the aging vessels that had been their only protection for so long. No, I suppose we don't. Why? I'd like to turn them into something else. Maybe a monument or a museum, something to help people remember what exile was like, so it never happens again. I think that's a wonderful idea, Lee replied. Later that evening, Lee received a personal message from Admiral Jang. The older man appeared tired but satisfied. Captain, I wanted to thank you for what you and your people did out there. You kept the flame alive when everything seemed hopeless. Without colonies like yours, humanity might have given up entirely. We just did what humans do, Lee said. We survived. You did more than survive. You showed the galaxy that exile doesn't break us. It just gives us time to become something they never expected. Admiral Jang paused. There's something else. Earth has formally invited all Outer Rim colonies to send representatives to a new planetary congress. They want to make sure that the mistakes of the past are never repeated. What kind of mistakes? The kind where politicians make deals that soldiers have to keep with their lives. This time, humanity will speak with one voice when it comes to galactic affairs. Lee thought about that for a moment. Admiral, what happens now? Do we go back to the way things were before the exile? No, Admiral Jang said firmly. We go forward to something better. The galaxy learned to fear us, and that fear brought respect. But fear alone isn't enough. We need to show them that humans can be trusted with power, that we won't become the same kind of oppressors the Confederation was. And if other species challenge us again? Admiral Zhang's smile was cold and confident. Then we remind them why the galaxy chose exile over war 50 years ago, and why that was the smartest decision they ever made. The transmission ended, leaving Lee alone with his thoughts. Through the observation window, he could see ships arriving and departing from the colony, no longer the desperate refugee transports of the past, but regular cargo vessels carrying supplies and passengers between the human worlds. Tomorrow, he would begin planning the colony's future. Some people would want to return to Earth, to see the homeworld they had heard about in stories. Others would choose to stay and build something new among the stars, but tonight, Lee just stood and watched the ships move through space without fear, without looking over their shoulders for Confederation hunters. The children of Earth were free again, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the distance, one of the ships lit up its engines and jumped to faster-than-light speed. It was heading coreward, toward the heart of civilized space where humans had been forbidden to go for 50 years. Lee smiled and pressed his hand against the cool glass of the observation window. Humanity's exile was over, and the real adventure was just beginning.